had only recently finished serving 6 years as an officer in the Army. I spent 15 months running convoys in Iraq. I always knew I wanted to study economics and international development. And after graduating from GW with a degree in international public policy, I found an internship with the Green Foundation in Uganda. That trip opened my eyes and changed my life. I fell in love with the people, I fell in love with the country. I felt a certain connection. The work that I was doing there, not only was it based on economics, and I love economics, but also I felt like I was close to the impact of the work. One of the first areas I researched was the shortage in terms of affordable housing.
Kuno obuzibu nga nzadde liita bw'atyo omusajja n'ampa olubuto nange nali simanyi kyengenda ozzaala ne nzaala omwana ng'ali bw'atyo aliko obulemu n'agamba ye tazaala balema nenkola ki nange nenkubira sisita wange essimu n'agamba jangu oyiiye olabe oba okuza omwana wo nange nansindika transporta nenzijja mwembeera tusasulayo $7,000 tusulamu babiri nsula wansi olugula zange nansula waggulu.
Osobola okujja nga muli bata omwezi mutwalo kuva mutwalo naye kati emyezi giriwo giba gya mitwalo 18.
The numbers already tell the story of there being a shortfall. What you see is that the supply of housing is not able to keep pace with the demand for housing. So you end up with a situation where people who are working hard, saving up money, are trying to start a business or buy a home, and they're living in the slums because there just isn't enough housing available. It's hard to just simply come back to the US and say, oh, everything's fine, when something could be done. And I don't just mean the old cliche handouts and charity. I mean that there's an economic case to be made for more investment. So I started the Celestine Fund to eradicate slums and to create transformational economic change in East Africa.
One of my first jobs, I was a software engineer working in a high-rise building. I was one of the lucky ones, a middle-class person. But I started thinking about the fact that most of the buildings we see around and the places we spend our lives in a lot of these African cities are not really owned by us, by Africans. I'd go through the markets and say, where are you going? Where do you stay? And folks say, well, I actually don't live in the city. Every morning I spend about 3 hours getting into the city, trying to do my business, and then I've got to get out. The population of Kampala almost doubles during the day, but they can't live there. They don't really own the city, it's not their home. People think that they'll never be able to own property. So we've got slums and shanty towns being set up. It's not a place that they want to live, but it's the only option. There's just not enough housing to meet the growing demand. Every year in Kampala and in Kenya, the shortfall increases.
There's a belief that you cannot profitably build housing that is cheap enough for the people who are currently living in slums. And this belief has to be challenged. And we've identified that when housing developments go up, where people want to live, at a point that they can afford, they go extremely quickly. We're planning to develop buildings that are at least 9 stories high and have a minimum of 90 to 100 apartment units. We're looking at previous developments of a similar size, similar scale, similar location, and they've been quite profitable in the past. And so we're targeting a 30% return on investment per year, with the minimum goal of 10% return per year. Our investment term is 5 years, the maturity of 5 years. And We would encourage everyone who considers investing to look at it as a long-term investment. We're partnering with Centum Real Estate both in Kenya and in Uganda. They've been active in real estate for over a decade and have built over 10 large-scale development projects. An example we're really excited about is the Two Rivers Mall project. It's a mall and several apartment buildings. It's really beautiful. There are walking paths, there's a little river, there's a pond, there's a nice park. They've done a really good job of making sure that there is green space. Their work is of high quality. They also have accumulated market data that is extremely valuable.
We're a for-profit business. It will also have a social good aspect. The Celestine Fund creates an opportunity that goes directly to the people that need it the most. We're creating the vehicle for businesses and people to actually grow out of poverty. That's real impact to me.
One thing that's really, really important to me and to the Celestine Fund is that we're engaging the African diaspora, building wealth both in the West and in East Africa. We've heard it said many times that home ownership is one of the most traditional paths to wealth building. And so by allowing people to have home ownership, you're giving them a path to wealth. In the US, we have a lot of people who have done very well and become very successful. We're sort of at the point now where people are looking for ways to make a statement. They're looking for ways to reaffirm their cultural identity. They're looking for ways to express their pride and their appreciation for a continent. I think we should all be encouraged by the growing trend towards impact investment and the fact that we're seeing it more and more in the US, we're seeing it more and more in Europe and around the world.
We believe it's time now to bring investors together and direct investment in East Africa, where it's crucially needed.